Welcome back everybody to Forza Horizon 6, and today we're taking a look at the 1970 Honda N600. So this is a car that was developed alongside the N360, which had a smaller engine as denoted by its name, and this was primarily made to be exported to the US and Europe markets, but it was briefly sold in Japan. However, due to the larger engine, though, it didn't qualify as a K car, even though the dimensions are exactly the same. So yeah, the N360 was produced from 1967 to 1972, with this version introduced in 1968. In Japan, though, only 1,500 examples were sold until early 1969, when this was discontinued due to not benefiting from the tax and insurance breaks that K cars got. And yeah, but this was a car that, like I said, was more for the export markets, and as you can tell, this is an American version, as it is left-hand drive. Although, like I said, it was sold in Europe, especially the likes of the UK, where it was compared somewhat favourably to the Mini of the time, even though it did cost a little bit more. But yeah, so US sales nonetheless did stop in 1972 after 25,000 were sold, so a reasonable success, and especially since it was the first Honda automobile to be officially sold in the United States by Honda itself. There were some private people that imported Honda before that, but this is the first Honda that Honda actually attempted to sell in the US. And yeah, for a first time car, 25,000 sales is not bad at all. So yeah, it's basically the less sporty version of the Honda ZGT that we've already looked at, which was part of the car pass. This is part of the current Series 4, although it is part of the main series, so you do need quite a hefty 80 points to get it. But yeah, it's all in all a very utilitarian interior, to be honest. You've got a glove box, you've got wind-down windows. I like the fact that you've got the manual gearbox up on the actual dashboard itself, like a Citroen of the time or something. But then obviously you look at your Honda Civics from the early 2000s, and they also would have their gear levers up near the steering wheel. So yeah, I guess it's an early precursor to that kind of vehicle. But yeah, all in all, a very utilitarian interior. But you've also got plenty of rear legroom as well, because one thing that K cars are really handy at is obviously making the most of their space. And I know this isn't technically a K car due to the engine, but like I said, the dimensions are still the same. So yeah, you can, theoretically still call it that. And yeah, got a decent sized boot as well. The boot lid itself is actually made out of plastic, which is one reason why this is such a lightweight car at £1,356. But still got a decent amount of boot space there. Now, one thing that is confusing me is that apparently because of the increase in the engine size, the spare wheel had to be put under the on the underside of the car at the back, and as you can see, there is space for it there. But as you'll see here, there is actually a spare wheel under the bonnet as well. So yeah, not entirely sure what's gone on there, but regardless, you do have a 600cc inline 2 air-cooled engine, producing a healthy 36 horsepower and 32 pounds-feet of torque. So that's actually a slightly more in the way of torque than the ZGT, which had 23 pounds-feet of torque, while having 1 extra horsepower. But this does weigh nearly 200 pounds extra over that car. So yeah, this is unfortunately not as quick as that. But at the end of the day, this is not a sporty car at all, where the ZGT really was. Certainly doesn't look sporty or anything like that, and that's also encompassed by the fact that the suspension is quite archaic. It's got a dead axle at the rear with leaf springs, so yeah, it's not the sportiest of cars by any stretch of the imagination, but you do still have plenty of space on the interior, and yeah, a decent amount of power regardless of the lack of sporty potentials from the suspension or the way that it looks. But yeah, it's also got a 4-speed manual to make the most of that power as well. So yeah, while also obviously being front wheel drive. So yeah, nonetheless, let's get out onto the Endami circuit, with the time attack circuit in the stadium, and see what this car can do. Right, here we are at the Edamame time attack circuit, and as per usual, we'll hear what the car sounds like and we'll talk about it some more. So yeah, this has reasonable performance for a car that ultimately doesn't have all that much in the way of power, and quite frankly it was brave of Honda to sell this in the US given the penchant for more no replacement for displacement and overall size of their vehicles. But yeah, it's a shame that they didn't keep this car going in the US given that the oil prices were not far off after this actually finished its sales. So yeah, I imagine this would have sold even more had it been kept on. But regardless, yeah, a really rather peppy kind of performance vehicle. But yeah, you can tell it's less of a sporty vehicle than the ZGT, even though this does have a bigger engine than that car. But still, 0 to 60 is dealt with in 19 seconds, which is apparently 10 seconds quicker than the N360 could ever do, and it has a top speed of 74 miles an hour. So yeah, it's not a bad car by any stretch of the imagination. Handling wise, it's perfectly adequate for a car of this kind of power and speed. But yeah, if you put any more power and speed in this car, then you certainly would be struggling to maintain control of it, because like I said, it has that quite archaic suspension at the rear, and yeah, hardly got the best brakes in the world either due to the extremely small tyres, so you can only put so larger brakes on them in the first place. So yeah, but it's a yeah, an enjoyable car, and even though it's not strictly a K car due to the engine size, it still ultimately is like one at the end of the day in terms of dimensions and weight and general being able to be thrown around in a city environment quite easily. So yeah, would be interesting if we could have the smaller engine version of this to see what that is like in comparison, considering that would be a fully fledged K car. But still, overall, this is a worthwhile car added to the game, and yeah, another unique vehicle to this game overall in terms of the Forza series. So yeah, I do highly recommend trying this one out if you haven't already. Obviously you do need to get the full 80 points at the end of the day, which is obviously quite a lot. You would need 40 points in the first season, and then at least, and then 40 points in this season to get as well. But I do think it's worth it, because at the end of the day it is a new car to the Forza series, and it's a unique one at that. And yeah, at the end of the day I like these more unique and slightly off the wall kind of vehicles from Japan. So yeah, it's well worth seeking out if you haven't already. But if you have tried this out already, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.